Hashtag psychotherapy unfogged with Mark Fielding.
Hello, welcome to Series 6, Episode 5 of Hashtag Psychotherapy Unfold. As you know, I'm Mark Fielding, psychotherapist and relationship counsellor, and your host. Today, I have the absolute pleasure to introduce Ijeoma Ndukwe, founder of Sercle. We'll be hearing a lot more about Sercle kind of going forwards in the interview. This is actually the second time that Ijeoma and I have tried to do this podcast. We tried to do it probably a few months ago, Ijeoma, wasn't it? And the internet connection let us down, but everything seems fine today, so that's good. I'm gonna maybe introduce Ijeoma by reading something off of the website, off of the Sercle website. There's quite a lot of narrative here, but it's all really, really interesting, and I think it would give our listeners a bit of an idea around what Sercle does, and obviously we'll be getting more into that as the interview goes on. So the About Us, over two-thirds of adults in low and middle income populations have experienced at least one traumatic event in their lifetime. In these communities, trauma survivors often face significant mental health challenges, including post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and depression. Despite the widespread need for support, access to effective trauma-informed care remains limited, deepening an already urgent crisis. This unmet need also carries a substantial economic burden. Trauma contributes to over 2,000 years lost to disability and over 40,000 years lost to premature mortality annually. Expanding access to mental health treatment is not just a humanitarian necessity, it's an investment in both economic and public health. At Sercle, we are breaking down financial barriers to quality mental health care. Our global therapist directory connects individuals with affordable trauma-informed therapy services, ensuring that cost is never an obstacle to healing. Our therapists recognise the critical role mental health plays in overall well-being and believe that therapy should be accessible to all, regardless of income. Through partnerships with skilled mental health professionals, we provide affordable services including individual, couples and family therapy for those in financial need. Our directory offers lifetime access to both in-office and online therapy for a one-time fee of $50. Therapy sessions cost range from $30 to $60 for individuals, $30 to $80 for couples or families, and just $30 for sessions with student interns paid directly to the selected therapist. For mental health professionals, joining our directory is more than just a career opportunity. It's a chance to address the growing mental health crisis while growing their practice. Beyond generating referrals and free profile advertising, Sercle is evolving into a comprehensive practice management platform, enabling therapists to seamlessly handle admin tasks, client engagement, scheduling, and billing. It's an all-in-one solution that frees up your time, allowing you to focus on supporting your clients, whether they come through Sercle or not. Whether you're looking to build an independent practice or streamline your workflow, Sercle provides the tools to support you every step of the way. But we're not stopping at therapy. We're developing an AI-powered community platform that offers peer support, a safe space for survivors to heal at their own pace, tools for tracking progress, and opportunities to contribute to trauma research. By integrating cutting-edge peer support, personalized services, data-driven insights, and survivor-centered education, Sercle empowers trauma survivors to heal and thrive on their own terms. To further support trauma survivors, we are integrating body-based approaches to healing. Trauma doesn't just affect the mind. It resides in the body, influencing nervous system regulation, stress responses, and overall well-being. By recognizing these physiological patterns, individuals can develop greater awareness and apply strategies to restore balance. Our work emphasizes the body's role as a resource for healing, empowering survivors with tools and insights to support their recovery journey in real time. Additionally, we recognize the need to educate young people about trauma in ways that engage and empower them. Upcoming initiatives will introduce interactive and experiential learning methods designed specifically for teenagers and young adults, making trauma awareness and self-regulation more accessible while fostering resilience from an early age. Yeah, I'd really love that. By bridging the gap between economic disparity and mental health care, Sercle is transforming access to trauma recovery, one client at a time. So thank you, Ijeoma, for coming on again. It's lovely to see you.
Thank you for having me. That was
No,
a long bit. I'm so sorry.
no worries. Let me just kick off and let me just ask, could you just tell our listeners a little bit about you?
Okay. Well, my name is Ijeoma, and I'm currently based in Lagos, Nigeria. I am a trauma survivor myself, and I, because of my own experience, I have first-hand knowledge of the profound challenges involved in seeking support and accessing the resources that is needed for healing. And trauma often leaves people feeling isolated, vulnerable, and overwhelmed. With the added burden of public stigma, it can make the journey toward healing even harder. And I experienced this stigmatization and isolation personally, as well as the difficulties of facing systems that re-traumatize instead of support survivors. And so in my own personal life, like because we are often not born with trauma education. There is no trauma education curriculum in our schools. And so when people encounter trauma in infancy or as teenagers, they're often left with nothing, with no knowledge of what happened or how it's with no language to describe what's happened and how it's impacting their lives. And oftentimes, even family members and people around them don't also know the impact of trauma and the need for immediate intervention in order to break that cycle of difficulties and challenges that survivors are often left to deal with for a long time. And so that was my own experience because I did experience trauma at a young age, but I didn't know what I was going through. I didn't know how it had impacted me. And I also had questions about why it happened because there were all these confusions. You're often told that, well, if you're lucky and you come from a family that teaches you about your body and about abuse and about people's interactions and boundaries and what is not supposed to happen in your relationship with an older person or even a younger person, to provide that awareness and give you the language to speak up if something bad is happening, then you're really lucky. But if you're not, and parents are often, especially parents of our generation, are often very ignorant about these issues, and they don't always provide this education because they are not aware themselves.
No.
There is not all. It leaves children who experience abuse in infancy with a lot of confusion and and which gives the perpetrator an upper hand because the perpetrator's authority or power is in the ignorance of the child or the victim. And so, there's often a lot of secrecy and silence that surrounds these experiences, and survivors are left to deal with the effects on their own because they can't tell what happened, they can't tell how it's affecting them, they don't even have the language to describe how it's affecting them. And so, for a very long time, I had to deal with this on my own. And as I grew older, I made the mistake of I tried to seek help. I didn't even know where I could find help in Lagos. And I grew up in a Christian family, and I spoke to the wrong person who was our pastor in the church. And he kind of used my story against me at some point. And it made a very difficult journey even more devastating. And I had, which drove me to the internet, and I began to learn about trauma and healing and resilience and what survivors are going through. And that was what gave birth to Sercle, because as I learned, I began to understand and began to gain mastery over the symptoms, and
Yeah.
I felt okay. Let me share what I was learning with other survivors. Perhaps there were others who also had questions and would benefit from what I was learning, and we can learn alongside each other. And then I also decided to create a platform where survivors could share their stories anonymously, and then collect data on sexual assaults and sexual and gender-based violence and trauma, to provide insight on what survivors are left to deal with for education purposes, and also to work with the right stakeholders to make an impact in that space. However, Sercle began as an anonymous initiative focused solely on survivors of sexual and gender-based violence in 2016, and the plan was to incorporate as an NGO. However, in talking about these issues in a country like Nigeria, where people would ordinarily prefer not to be in denial about the issues and are uncomfortable with disclosure. In our second year, in 2018, we ran into some challenges. We made a target, and there were lots of efforts that were made to shut us down. And what I was trying to prevent that others wouldn't go through, like falling into the wrong hand and being stigmatized like I was, was now turned around against me, and I was put at the center of survival stories that were shared on my platform. And it became such a big deal and a big mess. And instead of shutting down and going away, I decided to pivot into and incorporate a rebrand Share Anonymous to Sercle Inc. and incorporate as a public benefit corporation in the US, and then transform everything that I was doing to and expanding the focus of our offering to include survivors of other traumas, in order to make it more to open it up to more people who have experienced trauma, and also invite therapists all over the world who feel called to serve people in low and middle income communities like I am from, to provide access to care and support in on low rates, and bridge the financial and economic gaps that exist in mental health care.
And so much in what you say, and I mean, in terms of stigmatization, survivors will often not reach out and seek help, probably for lots of reasons, but one of the reasons is a fear of being stigmatized, is being judged, is being, I mean that, so a lot of survivors will just try and deal with it themselves, which of course is incredibly difficult to do, isn't it? I think. So with your platform, I mean, when we initially talked, I love the idea of an international kind of platform where survivors could meet and they could share their experiences. I mean, that even in itself, even without the therapy element, goodness me, that must be so amazing for survivors to be able to, I mean, difficult, of course, but to have a group that can listen and they can share their experiences, I think must be so helpful.
Because talk therapy is not the only way that people heal.
No.
And people can be in therapy every day. However, trauma, the effects of trauma is an everyday occurrence for most people. And so there is nobody else that understands somewhat a person's experience than someone who has been through the same things as well, who is going through the same challenges. And so the community platform, the goal of the community platform is to provide a safe space for people who have experienced trauma of any kind to connect with others and go through their healing journey without the expectation or the pressure to just get a fight and move on. And so on the platform, they can share their experiences. They can talk about their everyday lives, however it's going with them, the trauma and what navigating trauma, what that experience is for them. And in the goal is really to gain from survivor wisdom,
Yeah,
because survivors are the experts on their own experiences.
definitely.
They know what they went through. They know what it's been like.
Yeah,
They know what the challenges are, whether good or bad. They know what the coping strategies have been
yeah,
like, whether it's been good or it's been bad.
yeah,
And so it's just to provide a platform, a safe space where they can explore these challenges, also provide answers to others who have questions, track their own healing progress, and be connected to support when they are having severe challenges
yeah,
in order to support uh, to the directory to speak to professionals
yeah,
as they go along to provide that professional support to them. And so we are looking at it from a holistic standpoint,
mm,
providing opportunities for talk therapy on low rates. And but not only that, because we know that practitioners also have to make ends meet. They have to pay their bills. They have to, build their own practice. And therefore, we our goal is to begin with what people can pay.
yeah,
As they go along, we also believe that people cannot be in the same financial situation all their lives. As they go along in the healing journey or in sessions with therapists and things get better for them, yeah, it is their duty, their responsibility to bring that up with their therapist
mm,
and renegotiate for a higher fee.
mm,
And if they don't do that, then it's the therapist can also bring that up and also
mm.
renegotiate for a higher price within the uh, market within the market rate, not above what is
Yeah.
being generally built out there.
But I'm thinking that probably a lot of therapists on your directory are probably happy to offer kind of,
Yeah,
reduce rate, because I mean we don't come into this field. I mean, obviously we have to support ourselves, but I don't think many therapists come into this field just, for the financial aspect. I mean, we come into this field in order to
yeah.
help.
The
Yeah.
response has been great. We currently
Mm.
have about 39 therapists from 6 countries
Wow.
in the
Amazing.
registered therapists from 6 countries in the network, and a lot of them want to give back. The reason why they're joining is to give back to the community because they understand that there are so many people who cannot access them ordinarily. They have their normal
Mm.
people, their normal clients who pay their normal rates, but they're also willing to see people on the low rates in order to provide this access to care and support that a lot of people are in their need of.
Mm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's been great.
Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna kind of say, yeah, because I mean, in the UK, therapy is really expensive. I mean, a lot of I mean, I obviously know a lot of other therapists. When we all offer kind of reduced rate, obviously we have to pay our bills, but for people in kind of less privileged socio-economic backgrounds, it's almost impossible to, I mean, there is an NHS here, but the NHS does take time. It can be impossible for people to seek help and get the help that they need. So,
Yeah,
and this is an international directory, and of course, this, internationally, this problem, there's so much trauma in the world, isn't there? I mean, there's trauma going on everywhere, really, and so many
yeah,
people can't access the care that they need. And I guess this is why you founded this company, in order to try and plug that gap. You've come at it through your own personal experience, and I think what you offer, is absolutely fantastic, really. I mean, 39 therapists in 6 countries. I mean, that's great. It's a good
yeah.
start. Yeah,
It's a good start.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
we're growing every day. So
Mm.
I send out invitations all the time. And
Mm.
that was how I met you.
Yeah.
And uh and the response has been really great. And then as I interact with therapists, I also have been able to get to know what the journey is for them in their own practice and what they need. And that led to evolving into building a comprehensive management tool
Yeah.
that can help to streamline admin and operations tasks, including in client engagement, and also provide the opportunity to run their practice and support even non-circle clients
Mm. Mm.
on the platform.
Mm. And then you also, something else that really kind of drew my attention when I was going through your website earlier, is the education. And something
Yeah,
that you mentioned when, when you first started talking. I mean, the education is so important. And when you were saying earlier that people can experience trauma when they're pre-verbal, and of course their body holds all of the trauma and they're experiencing
Yeah,
PTSD, hypervigilance.
yeah,
They probably feel like they're going mad. They might not even remember the event. The event might be
that,
repressed. Yeah, so
yeah,
the education is so key. And this is also something that Sercle provides.
yes. It's a planned innovation. It's one of the innovations that we have planned for the future.
Yeah,
And our goal is to, because thanks to the internet, we can have this platform online and
yeah,
reach as many people as possible. So our goal is to make it possible for anyone on anyone who has access to the internet to
mm,
be able to take advantage of these services
mm,
wherever
mm,
they are, whenever they need it. And
mm.
so working together with the right partners like schools, youth groups,
Yeah,
and other organizations that are even hospitals, to provide access to this information so that people who experience these things at a younger age can learn what trauma is, the
yeah,
symptoms, what they
yeah,
can do to cope better,
yeah,
and so that they are equipped with the right tools and the right knowledge and are free to live their lives without the debilitating impacts of
yeah.
trauma affecting every important parts of their lives.
Yeah. I mean, depending on the individual, but I think what I'm going to say is mostly true, affecting every single aspect of their life,
Yeah, depending on the individual.
depending on the circumstance in the individual. I mean,
Yes,
yeah.
individual lives.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean things like I mean there's so many symptoms of PTSD, but just to pull out one, the hypervigilance for threat. I mean, for some people that have experienced trauma, it can be so debilitating. It can lead
Mhm.
to addiction. It can lead to them not wanting to leave the house.
Yeah.
Affects everything potentially.
Yes, it
Yeah.
does.
Yeah, and this is why I think the education is so important because I guess even with the education, it doesn't make, the trauma kind of symptoms go away, but it gives a context, doesn't it? I think someone might be scared to go out. They might be, using something, in order to help them cope and really have no idea what is going on. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes even understanding that it is trauma, and PTSD is something a lot of people experience, and there is a
Hmm.
lot of correlation between symptoms, I think can be massively helpful for people.
Yeah, and understanding that, they are not crazy for feeling the way that they feel.
Exactly.
And other people are also going through it. The fact there's a language for it means
Yes.
that other people have gone through it. Other people are also living their lives even with these conditions and challenges. It is
Yeah.
possible for them to have a life even with alongside this.
Yeah.
It's also possible to have positive emotions and positive experiences alongside the experience of trauma and the impact.
Yeah.
So life doesn't just end because you experience trauma, and it shouldn't, at least it shouldn't end for you. Everything, it should not overshadow everything in your life. You can actually live a full life even as you're dealing with the challenges and trying to walk through it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, understanding what's going on and working towards healing, with the group, with the education, with the therapist, but also, seeking out good experiences and
Yeah.
nourishing experiences. The two things are not necessarily mutually exclusive.
Hmm.
Yeah, but I guess when trauma survivors do go in, and it's completely understandable that they do that, and they do self-isolate, then even though they feel protected, actually, the more their life diminishes, I guess, the less nourishment they're getting from the outside world,
Yeah.
basically, or the
True.
symptoms start affecting them. It's similar
That,
with depression, isn't it? I guess when people are depressed, they tend to kind of withdraw, which is obviously the worst thing to do, but completely
mhm.
understandable that people do that. I mean, in terms you also mentioned kind of incorporating body work,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of research, isn't there, now around, trauma being kind of stored in the body. Bessel van
Mhm.
der Welt, is quite a big proponent
Yeah.
of that. Could you, for our listeners that wouldn't understand what that is, could you maybe just tell our listeners what that is, what kind of body therapy might look like?
Okay. Well, like you mentioned, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, I'm
Yeah.
actually currently in his program, the Trauma Research
Wow.
and Foundation. I'm currently in the traumatic stress studies program to
Yeah.
learn more
Wow.
about trauma and how trauma impacts the body and the treatment modalities out there to understand how better to serve our clients, to serve survivors, and also understand what therapists need as well. And well, we are not essentially providing body therapy. Our plan is to create wearable technology like smart wristwatches that will monitor body-based symptoms of trauma and provide tips on how survivors can manage them in the moment. And so our goal is that as survivors interact and use the device, they are able, a report of the experience of interacting with the device will be captured as a report that will provide deeper insight on the severity or the frequency of the occurrences that they can share with their care team in order to bridge the communication gap. Like we'll be talking about how the knowledge of trauma is very limited in the public space. And so where language fails survivors in expressing how they are feeling and what they are going through, the reports from this from the device and also the experience of sharing in the community platform will provide a deeper insights for their care team in order to personalize the support that they are receiving.
Yeah, and incorporating, I guess, using modern technology in order to to help trauma survivors deal with their symptoms. I mean, it's a really amazing symbiosis, and I guess with AI technology, I guess that comes into it as well. That makes it maybe a bit easier, does it, to do that?
Yeah, it does. The point of using machine learning on the platform is to be able to identify trends in the conversations on what is working for survivors, what is not working, provide a deeper insight on the challenges that survivors are going through, because trauma is developmental. In order to use these trends to working with partners to improve healing and intervention-based programs, and also improve educational resources out there for practitioners and survivors themselves, even including people who create medications and tools that survivors use every day in order to work with them and make sure that that these things that are being created are things that survivors need and are helpful to them.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's kind of holistic healthcare, really, that we're talking about here. I mean, nothing is excluded, medication, education, therapy, body-based work. Which is, it's a long time since I read his famous book, but this is what Bessel van der Kolk really talks about, isn't it? Lots and lots of different strategies for dealing with trauma being stored in the body. I mean, his work when it came out was completely groundbreaking, really, in terms of trauma. Yeah, but difficult to do that if you're traumatized and you've got a constellation of symptoms and you have no idea what it is
going on.
This is why the education is so important.
Yeah.
I mean, education in schools, I mean, obviously it's a while since I've been at school, but there was no education really around trauma. And is that something that you feel would be important, really, that schools should have a look at this, really, that maybe should give some education?
Yeah, it's important that it's included in school curriculum somewhere. And that is the point of the platform, to work with schools to have them include this as part of their school programs, and also get their students onto the platform, because our goal is to gamify the platform, the exercise, in order to make it more engaging and experiential for the users.
Yeah. I mean, so the platform will contain all sorts of kind of information, education,
yes, on trauma, on things like the fight or responses to trauma, self-regulation, resilience, self-compassion, and other tools that are helpful in managing the internal states and internal symptoms of survivors.
Yeah, and I guess it mirrors your own journey, really. I mean, from what you were saying earlier, you experienced trauma, you didn't really know what was happening, and then you went onto the internet. This is, why the internet is so useful. And you did your own research, you educated yourself. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? The Sercle kind of mirrors in some ways, I guess, your own journey as a survivor.
The survivor, yes.
Yeah, and it, and it's driven by somebody who really understands, of course,
Yeah,
which is tremendously important.
yeah.
Yeah,
So you could say that building Sercle, when we started as Share Anonymous in 2016, it's sort of a meaning-making exercise
yeah,
in order to transcend the experience. So
yeah,
helping in this way, trying to make impact in this way, and trying to work alongside survivors, because we the important thing is for survivors to be curious about the experiences,
yeah,
curious to understand what is going on, what happens,
yeah,
how or what do I need,
yeah,
how do I access it, and also understanding that they are actually the experts on their experiences, and a
yes,
lot of people will gain from learning from them what is has been going on, what is currently going on, what works, what does not work,
yeah,
and in order to also like seeing it from the perspective of when we contribute in this way with our experience, it makes what we went through count for
yeah.
something.
I absolutely see that. Yeah. Well,
And
it's
so
just something I say on the show a lot is, you know, people transforming their own suffering into, helping others, and
yeah,
it's kind of what you're saying, I think, isn't it?
yes, it
Yeah,
makes everything worth it. Not worth it, but means something.
yeah,
And that also helps in the healing process,
yeah,
knowing that you've gained mastery and you're making impacts and a positive impact in this issue
yeah,
means that well, nothing was taken away. You are still you. Everything that you've gone through, everything that you've been able to learn and also equip yourself with, it's been all you. You have, like, survivors have the power. They have the autonomy and the agency. They can actually make
yeah.
a difference in this space and in any other space that they want to. The trauma does not mean that their life is over, or that it shouldn't define their lives in ways that are negative, or that would keep them from living a full and the full life and realizing their potential.
And giving meaning to the suffering that they've experienced. I mean, goodness me,
Yeah,
that's enormous, really, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it really is, isn't it? I think, yeah. I mean, if people, if our listeners want to get hold of you, want to access, any of the services that you offer, access your website, and obviously we'll put all your links on our social media sites and
mm.
up with the show notes. But how do they do it? What's the easiest way for them to get in touch?
Okay. Well, I'm always on LinkedIn sourcing for therapists, and I will share my LinkedIn account link with you. And also, I can be reached via email, my personal email, or info@circlelink.com, or Ijeoma Ndukwe at circlelink.com.
Mm. Okay. And as I say, we'll put all of your links up with our social
Yeah,
media sites. I mean, I look at the world where, I mean, trauma has always been part, unfortunately, of the human experience. But then I look at the world we're living in now, and goodness me, there are so many people I think that have experienced trauma and
mhm.
and probably don't even know what's happening to them, can't access care because it is very expensive to
Yeah,
access care, and Circle is really there to try and plug that gap. When you said earlier, well, therapy is not the only way to deal with trauma. I mean, I think that is so true. I mean, sharing experiences, I mean, just to go back to that, and
yeah,
education around what is going on. I mean, that in itself, I think, is so, so helpful to people. I mean, goodness me, you must have heard so many, you don't have to talk about them now, but you must have heard so many terrible traumatic experiences from some of the survivors. But to be held in a group and to feel safe, not stigmatized,
yeah.
tremendously important.
Yeah. What I think it was Peter Levine that said that
Yeah,
trauma is not only what happened, but it's also what happened what is happening, or the effects that came about as a result of the absence of a validating witness, of
yeah,
a witness that is there to meet you with validation and compassion.
mm,
So a lot of
okay,
survivors didn't have that at the time that they encountered the incident.
no,
And so that is what we are trying to like bring, uh, make possible for them through the community platform,
yeah,
where they would connect with others who know what is going on, who know what it is and what the effects are, to provide that support and compassion and understanding as they go along their healing journey.
Yeah, and some survivors, depending on the nature of the trauma, will blame themselves. I mean that also happens,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot of self-blame and self-judgment,
Mm.
especially not just about the incidents that happen, but also like if they're not getting better, if they're
Yeah,
not doing better, you
yeah,
know, sometimes it just like you feel like things should be working better. I feel
yeah,
so stuck, and
yeah.
it but you don't know what you need, and you don't know
No.
where to access that support or what to even ask of other people.
Mm.
And so having that knowledge and understanding and gaining that having that knowledge and information at your fingertips and would helps to not just understand the situation, but to
Mm.
also gain mastery over the symptoms and challenges.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, absolutely. And I guess there were also. I mean, we could probably spend hours talking about this, but there are also a lot of cultural differences in trauma, in how trauma is perceived. There's a lot of I think there's a lot of things that influence kind of survivors, really. I mean, you talked about
Yeah.
stigmatization. I mean, I think that probably happens in all cultures, honestly. But
Mhm.
but I think there are culturally specific kind of aspects of healing from trauma too. Don't know. It's a massive question, I know, but
Yeah.
how do you see that, Ijeoma?
Well, when you talk about stigmatization,
Yeah.
it's there is the public stigma and there is the self stigma.
Yes.
And self stigma is as a result of public stigma, because when people do things to you long enough, you might end up doing the same thing to yourself.
Yeah.
Because as a result
True.
of ignorance, you believe these things about yourself because you have been told that, why haven't you gotten over it? Why are you
Yeah.
talking about this all the time? But
Yeah.
you can't, it's not something that you can just switch off or get over immediately if you don't have
No.
the that if you haven't been
No.
equipped with the tools to navigate the
Mm.
challenges. And so and it's also more devastating when people who you look up to, who you think would meet you with understanding and compassion, for because like in my own case, it wasn't only ignorant people who stigmatized me or are stigmatizing me and making things difficult for me. It is also people in the NGO and
Yeah.
feminists and
Yeah.
activists in space. People who you think should know better,
Yeah.
educated people who are exposed,
Yeah.
and can access this information online. Not like they are ignorant, but they are also willing to do these things
Yeah.
to someone who
Yeah.
they know or think is facing challenges. Why would you respond so excuse me,
Yeah.
why would you respond so negatively or make things difficult for them? And so it's really I think it's a crisis of humanity, because it's not
Yeah.
really an issue of education.
Yeah.
We say educate people and they will know better. There are educated people who know better, but who also choose to do these things to others.
Yeah.
And what we can do is, for me, the solution that I saw is to help in this way through Circle, to
Mm.
be able to provide a space for people who have experienced these things, access better supports and better care and understanding and
Mm.
connection in order to foster a safer environment for them to heal, so that whatever is happening in their lives, whatever is happening at work or in their relationships or in the family, they know that they can always come online to the community and connect with people who
Yeah.
understand them and who provide them with the care and the answers that they need. And there are also practitioners out there in the network that would also provide professional care if it's needed.
Yeah. And when you say, crisis of humanity, I mean that really, really resonates because I think that's true.
Yeah,
It's undoubted, actually makes me feel, quite upset really, because that is absolutely true. It is a crisis of humanity, isn't it? I mean, there's so much trauma and there's so much trauma everywhere. I mean, there is all sorts of trauma going on all of the time. I mean, there's big T trauma, there's small T trauma, people experience trauma often, and yet it's not something that is really talked about, certainly not
yeah,
really in the education system, and providing education, I think, is incredibly important. Could I just ask you, we're kind of nearing the end. Is there anything that you would like to say that I've not given you the opportunity to?
Um, well,
Such a
when
big area, isn't it? Yeah,
yes. Okay, when you talk about when you talk about trauma in like how people need to understand and provide more support and better understanding for for survivors and meet them with care and compassion.
yeah,
And you wonder why that is not always possible,
yeah,
because there are so many people who have experienced trauma, and they should be able to understand that, okay, if I'm facing these challenges, there are other people who are also facing challenges,
yeah,
and be more understanding and patient and kind to others that they meet. And
yeah,
but this is not the case, and I'm wondering, like, is this an issue of survival? Because most people are in survival mode and they're trying their best to make, to make life work, and they don't have the patience to listen to themselves and attend to their feelings, or pay attention to their challenges, and
yeah,
attend to their pain in ways that would help them to be more compassionate and
yeah.
understanding and kind to others. And so I wonder about these things a lot, and I don't have the answers right now.
No, no,
But I believe that one thing that people need to understand is kindness doesn't take a lot of effort.
no. And compassion,
Compassion,
yeah,
empathy, and
yeah,
understanding, you
yeah,
know, relating with people from the understanding that they may have gone through some things, and
yeah,
they may be going through some things as well, and you need to be more kinder and understanding and patient to when you talk about empathy, it's trying to walk in the shoes of other people
yeah,
and relating with them from that perspective is really important. And if we can be more conscious about that, you know I think it will make a lot of difference.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
And
I agree. So go ahead.
And as for Sercle, what we are building, we are still in pre-product and pre-revenue phase, seeking angel-only pre-seed investments in order to build out our products and go to market. And so, and we are also looking for partners and supporters that would help us
Mm,
expand our networks, because we are trying to launch in the US as a global brand
mm,
in order to reach as many people as possible.
yeah,
And so, we cannot do it alone. It
yeah,
needs a village. And so we are open to partnerships. We are open to people, connecting with people who are passionate about our mission and our vision. And we are ready to work with the right people to make this happen.
okay, thank you. I think we'll finish there, but I just want to say thank you so much for coming on and talking
Thank you
about
for
the
having me.
important work you do. And it's been really nice to see you again.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'd like to thank Ijeoma once again for coming on the show. As I mentioned at the start of the show, of the interview, we did try and meet up and have the interview a good few months ago, but unfortunately the internet connection was not great. Sometimes this happens when working with international guests. So it was really brilliant that we could rearrange the interview and talk more around the important work Ijeoma does in, providing a platform to help survivors of trauma, um, transforming her own experiences, her own traumatic experiences, and finding meaning in setting up a company to help other trauma survivors. Such important work. If you do want to get in touch with Ijeoma, then please do check out our show notes or our social media sites. And I probably will have Ijeoma back on the show, maybe in the next series, and we'll check out where she is. Um, really, really fantastic. And providing care and education for trauma survivors, and also low income fee, which I think is so incredibly important. The therapy is expensive. Most therapists do have slots for low income, which I do, but therapy is expensive, and Ijeoma is, all about providing therapy and the potential for healing internationally for trauma survivors, and not allowing, privilege and income to get in the way of that amazing work that she is doing. I would just like to say, if you are listening to the show and you have enjoyed the interview today, then please do leave a comment and please do subscribe. It's really important for us in many different ways that you do subscribe if you're listening to the show. Lots of people listen to podcasts and don't subscribe. So if you are enjoying the content we're producing, then please do subscribe. Please also leave us some comments. Joe and I, love the feedback. If there's anyone that you would think would be good for us to interview on the show, please do let us know. We're always open to new guests and listener feedback. So I just want to wish you all the best. Thank you very much for listening to the show. Look after yourselves, look after each other, and look after the planet. And I'll see you soon on the next episode. Thanks for listening.